I'm Rachel Thompson, 28 years old, and I'm sitting at my parents' dinner table staring at them in complete disbelief as they casually ask me to pay $50,000 for my younger sister Ashley's wedding. The same parents who told me 10 years ago I was on my own for college are now expecting me to fund her lavish celebration. My phone sits beside my plate showing my student loan balance of $80,000 while they describe Ashley's dream venue. Before we dive deeper into this family drama, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you dealing with similar family financial conflicts? Hit that like button if you believe in fair treatment among siblings, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that'll make you think twice about family obligations. Trust me, what happens next in my story will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. Growing up in the Thompson household meant understanding one fundamental truth: Ashley was the golden child, and I was the backup plan. 6 years separated us, but it might as well have been different universes. While Ashley got new clothes from the mall every season, I wore hand-me-downs from our cousins that were already worn when they gave them to us. My mother Diana would say things like, "Rachel, you're so lucky your cousin Melissa takes good care of her clothes," while handing me another bag of faded jeans and stretched-out sweaters. The favoritism wasn't subtle. When I asked for piano lessons at age 10, my parents said we couldn't afford extras. 2 years later, Ashley not only got piano lessons but also dance classes, gymnastics, and private art tutoring. I remember sitting in the car during Ashley's ballet recitals, doing homework by the dim overhead light while my parents cheered her on inside. They'd come out gushing about her natural talent while I had learned to perfect my smile and say, "That's great, Ashley," like a well-trained parrot. High school brought the differences into sharp focus. I worked 3 part-time jobs starting at 15. Morning shifts at the local bakery, evenings at the grocery store, and weekends tutoring middle school kids in math. Every penny went into my college savings account. I'd watch that number grow slowly, calculating how many hours of work each textbook would cost. Meanwhile, Ashley's 16th birthday arrived with fanfare that would make a celebrity jealous. My parents threw her a party that cost $15,000, complete with a DJ, catered food, and a 3-tier cake that looked like it belonged at a wedding. My 16th birthday? A homemade cake and dinner at Applebee's, which I was grateful for at the time because I knew they were trying. The real shock came when Ashley turned 16. I was in my senior year, filling out scholarship applications until my hand cramped, writing essays about overcoming adversity that felt too real. I had just received my acceptance letter to State University with a partial scholarship that would cover about 40% of tuition. I was ecstatic, running downstairs to share the news. That's when I saw it through the window, a brand new Honda Civic with a giant red bow sitting in our driveway. Ashley screamed with joy while my parents beamed, and I stood there holding my acceptance letter, suddenly understanding exactly where I ranked. "Mom, Dad, I got into State with a partial scholarship," I said during dinner that night, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice despite the car-shaped elephant in the room. My mother barely looked up from her plate. "That's nice, honey. You'll figure out the rest, I'm sure. You've always been so independent." My father Robert nodded, adding, "We need to be smart about our finances. Ashley's going to need our help when she gets older. You've always been the capable one, Rachel." The capability they praised was born from necessity, not nature. I applied for every scholarship I could find, wrote essays until my eyes burned, and took out loan after loan. The financial aid office became my second home as I navigated federal loans, private loans, work-study programs, and payment plans. I moved into the cheapest dorm available, bought used textbooks that fell apart by midterms, and lived on ramen noodles and cafeteria leftovers. While my roommate went home for spring break, I picked up extra shifts at the campus bookstore. I graduated with a degree in marketing and $120,000 in debt. The number felt surreal, like Monopoly money, until the first bill arrived 6 months later. $780 a month for the next 20 years. I had landed an entry-level marketing coordinator position at a firm downtown, making $35,000 a year. After taxes, rent, and loans, I had barely enough for groceries. During those same 4 years, Ashley floated through high school like she was starring in her own teen movie. She went to prom 3 times, each dress more expensive than the last. Her Instagram feed showed spring breaks in Cancun, summer trips to Europe, and weekend shopping sprees that cost more than my monthly food budget. She barely graduated with a 2.5 GPA, but my parents threw her a graduation party that rivaled her sweet 16. "Our baby girl is growing up," my mother had gushed, while I sat in my studio apartment eating takeout Chinese, unable to afford the gas to drive home for the celebration. The pattern was set in stone. Ashley received while I achieved. Ashley was celebrated while I was expected. Ashley was protected while I was pushed out to prove myself. Every family gathering reinforced these roles. Relatives would ask me about my career, my progress, my 5-year plan, while Ashley got questions about her happiness, her boyfriends, her dreams. I became the family success story they could brag about at church, while Ashley remained their precious baby who needed constant care and attention. Looking back now, I can see how they groomed me for this moment. "Every You're So Strong, Rachel and Ashley needs more help than you do" was preparing me to be their financial backup plan. They built me into someone who could succeed despite them, then expected me to share that success as if they had contributed to it. The irony wasn't lost on me as I worked 60-hour weeks to make my loan payments while Ashley posted photos from her 3rd gap year finding herself across Europe on my parents' dime. Fast forward to present day, and I've managed to claw my way up from that entry-level position to marketing director at a tech startup. It took 6 years of late nights, weekend work, and more networking events than I could count, but I finally broke 6 figures. Of course, after taxes and my student loans, I'm still living in a 1-bedroom apartment and driving a 10-year-old Toyota Corolla that makes concerning noises when I turn left. But I'm proud of what I built, even if it's on a foundation of debt and sacrifice. I should have known something was up when my mother called 3 times in one day. Diana Thompson doesn't call her eldest daughter unless she needs something, and 3 calls meant whatever she needed was big. "Family dinner this Sunday, don't be late," she had said, her voice carrying that false sweetness that always preceded demands. "Ashley has exciting news." Walking into my childhood home that Sunday felt like entering a stage where I already knew my role but hadn't been given the script. The dining room was set with the good china, the ones that only came out for Christmas and when the pastor visited. Ashley sat at the table like a queen holding court, a massive diamond ring catching the light on her left hand. Beside her sat Blake Matthews, her boyfriend of 8 months who described himself as an entrepreneur but seemed to spend most of his time posting cryptocurrency advice on Twitter. "Rachel's here," my father announced unnecessarily as I took my usual seat, the wobbly chair they'd never bothered to fix. Ashley thrust her hand in my face before I could even say hello. "Can you believe it? Blake proposed at the vineyard last weekend. It was absolutely perfect." The ring was easily 3 carats, the kind of ostentatious display that screamed poor financial decisions. I managed a smile and the expected congratulations while mentally calculating how many of my student loan payments that ring represented. Dinner progressed with wedding talk dominating every moment. My mother had already been on Pinterest for hours, she informed us, creating boards for Ashley's dream wedding. They discussed venues, each more expensive than the last. The country club. The historic mansion. The beachfront resort that required a 2-night minimum for all guests. Blake sat there nodding along like money grew on trees in his backyard, occasionally mentioning his big deals in the pipeline that would set them up for life. Then came the moment that changed everything. My mother pulled out an honest-to-God presentation folder, like she was about to pitch a business proposal. "We've done some preliminary budgeting," she began, sliding papers across the table. The first page made my eyes water. Venue, $20,000. Dress, $8,000. Catering for 300 guests, $25,000. Flowers, $5,000. Photography and videography, $7,000. Band, $4,000. The list went on, each line item more absurd than the last. "This is just the starting point," Ashley chimed in, her voice carrying that whiny edge it got when she wanted something. Blake and I really want this to be special. We're only planning to get married once. Blake squeezed her hand and nodded solemnly, as if they were discussing world peace rather than napkin colors. My father cleared his throat, and I knew from that sound alone that I wasn't going to like what came next. The total comes to about $75,000, he said, as casually as if he were discussing the weather. Blake's family will contribute $10,000, and we can manage $15,000 from our savings. The math hung in the air like a bad smell. I could see where this was going, but I needed to hear them say it. That leaves $50,000, I said slowly, my voice steadier than my hands under the table. My mother beamed at me like I was a star pupil who had just solved a difficult equation. Exactly. And as the successful one in the family, we knew you'd want to contribute. $50,000 should be manageable for someone in your position. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound that made Ashley frown. You're joking, I said, but their expectant faces told me they were dead serious. You want me to pay $50,000 for Ashley's wedding? The same parents who told me to figure out college on my own? That's different, my father said, using his stern voice that used to make me fold as a child. This is about family. Family helps family. Where was that philosophy when I was eating ramen for 4 years straight? I shot back, my carefully constructed composure cracking. When I was working 3 jobs to pay for textbooks? When I graduated with 6 figures of debt that I'm still paying off? Ashley's face crumpled into practiced tears. I always knew you were jealous of me, she wailed. Just because you chose to go to college doesn't mean you get to ruin my special day. This is my wedding, Rachel. My one perfect day. I didn't choose to go into debt, Ashley. I chose to get an education, and our parents chose not to help me. That's fine, I made it work. But don't you dare sit there with your 3-carat ring and tell me I owe you anything. My mother's mask of sweetness slipped. Rachel and Thompson, you will not speak to your sister that way. We raised you better than this. We raised you to be generous, to share your blessings. What blessings? I practically shouted. The blessing of $780 in loan payments every month? The blessing of driving a car that might die any day because I can't afford repairs and loan payments? The blessing of watching you pour money into Ashley's every whim while telling me I'm strong enough to handle it alone? Blake finally spoke up, his voice dripping with condescension. Maybe if you managed your money better, this wouldn't be such a big ask. I mean, you make 6 figures, right? That's more than most people our age. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. And maybe if you had a real job instead of pretending cryptocurrency is a career, you could pay for your own wedding. His face turned red, but I was beyond caring. I'm done. This conversation is over. If you walk out that door, you're walking out on this family, my father said, standing as well. The threat that might have worked when I was 18 fell flat now. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, my hands shaking with rage and something that felt like grief. Rachel, please, my mother called after me. Just think about it. We're not asking for the money tomorrow. You have time to figure it out. I turned back one last time, taking in the scene, my parents standing united in their manipulation, Ashley crying her fake tears while Blake comforted her, the wedding budget spread across the table like battle plans. I figured it out already. The answer is no. Not now, not ever. The drive home was a blur of tears and fury. My phone started buzzing before I even reached the highway. Texts from my mother ranging from guilt trips to outright emotional manipulation. Voicemails from my father about family duty and disappointment. Ashley's messages were the worst, alternating between calling me selfish and begging me to reconsider, sometimes in the same text. I pulled into my apartment complex and sat in my car for 20 minutes, engine off, trying to process what had just happened. They had actually planned this, prepared a presentation, calculated exactly how much they could extract from me. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. They knew down to the dollar how much I paid in student loans because I'd told them during one of my weaker moments, hoping for sympathy or understanding. Instead, they'd filed that information away, waiting for the right moment to use it against me. My phone rang again. Ashley's picture flashed on the screen, a photo from her college graduation where she wore a designer dress that cost more than my monthly rent. I declined the call and blocked her number. Then my parents. Then Blake. It was temporary, I told myself, just until I could think clearly. But as I climbed the stairs to my apartment, I wondered if anything about this situation could be temporary. They'd shown me who they were, who they'd always been. The only difference was now they wanted something I had worked to build, and they felt entitled to it simply because we shared DNA. I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop, pulling up my budget spreadsheet. The numbers hadn't changed since that morning, but now they felt different. Every dollar I'd saved, every raise I'd earned, every sacrifice I'd made had been for my future, not to fund Ashley's fantasy wedding. Looking at those numbers, I made myself a promise. They would never make me feel guilty for my success or ashamed of protecting what I'd built. If that made me selfish in their eyes, so be it. The assault began at 6:30 the next morning. My phone, which I'd foolishly unblocked before bed in case of emergencies, lit up like a Christmas tree. Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, led the charge with a voicemail that began sweetly enough before descending into passive-aggressive manipulation. "Rachel, honey, I heard about the little disagreement at dinner. Now, I know things were said in the heat of the moment, but family is family. Your mother is devastated. Just devastating. Maybe you could call her? I'm sure you can work something out." By the time I got to work, I had 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and enough voicemails to fill a podcast series on family dysfunction. My cousin Melissa, who I'd actually thought was on my side, sent a long message about how we all have to make sacrifices for family and how she'd helped pay for her brother's rehab even though he'd stolen from her. The comparison between addiction treatment and a luxury wedding seemed to escape her entirely. The real shock came when I checked Facebook during lunch. Ashley had posted a vague but clearly targeted status, "It's so sad when family members let money come between them and love. Some people forget where they came from." The comments were already piling up, relatives and family friends offering support and asking what happened. My mother had commented with a string of broken heart emojis, because apparently emotional manipulation now came in digital form. My grandmother Helen called while I was trying to eat my sad desk salad. Grandma Helen, who had always been the closest thing to neutral Switzerland in our family drama, delivered her message with the kind of steel that comes from surviving 86 years. "Rachel Ann, I don't know what exactly happened, but I do know you're breaking your mother's heart. That girl calls me every hour crying about how you're ruining Ashley's happiness. Now, I raised your mother better than this drama, but you need to fix it. Don't make me come down there." The threat might have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. Even Grandma, who had lived through the Depression and World War II, who had preached self-reliance and hard work my entire life, was taking their side. I wanted to scream that I wasn't ruining anything, that expecting me to pay for a wedding I couldn't afford for a sister who'd never worked a day in her life was the real issue, but I just told her I'd think about it and hung up. My best friend Kayla found me in the office bathroom, crying into paper towels that disintegrated at the first touch of tears. She didn't say anything at first, just handed me actual tissues from her purse and waited. When I finally told her everything, her face went through a journey of emotions that ended on pure rage. "They're gaslighting you," she said firmly. "This is textbook financial abuse. They neglected your needs, favored Ashley, and now they want to cash in on your success like you're some kind of ATM. You know I'm right." I did know she was right, but knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two different battles. By Wednesday, the family pressure had intensified. My cousin James, who I'd helped with his resume just last year, called to tell me I was being selfish. My Aunt Patricia, who hadn't spoken to me since Christmas 3 years ago, suddenly felt the need to remind me about family values. Even my father's brother, Uncle Pete, who lived in Maine and barely knew Ashley existed, somehow got pulled into the drama. The stories they'd been told were fascinating in their creativity. According to the family telephone game, I was now a millionaire who spent money on designer bags and exotic vacations while refusing to help my struggling family. The truth that I lived in a modest apartment and bought my work clothes at outlet malls didn't fit their narrative. Ashley and my parents had crafted a version of me that justified their demands, and that fiction was spreading through the family like wildfire. Thursday brought a new low. I was in the middle of presenting quarterly marketing projections when the receptionist interrupted. "Rachel, there are some people here to see you. They say it's urgent family business." My stomach dropped. Sure enough, my parents stood in the lobby of my office, my mother clutching tissues and my father wearing his best disappointed dad expression. "We need to talk," my mother said loudly enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear. "This has gone on long enough." I had two choices. Cause a scene by refusing to see them or handle this professionally. I chose what I thought was the high road and led them to a small conference room, praying none of my colleagues would witness whatever was about to unfold. The ambush was coordinated. My mother cried about sacrifices they'd made, though she couldn't name any specific to me when pressed. My father lectured about family duty and how they'd raised me better than this. They tag-teamed guilt trips about Ashley's happiness, their standing in the community, and how everyone was talking about our family drama. "We sacrificed everything for you girls," my mother wailed, mascara running in rivers down her cheeks. "Everything." Something in me snapped. "Name one sacrifice she made specifically for me." "One." "I'll wait." The silence stretched. "My father tried with we fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head, but I cut him off." "That's called basic parenting, Dad. That's literally the legal minimum. What did you sacrifice for me? What opportunities did you give up to help me succeed? Because I can list exactly what you gave Ashley: cars, trips, unlimited credit cards, a free ride through life. What did I get? The privilege of figuring it out myself." My mother's tears turned to anger. "You always were ungrateful. We gave you independence. We taught you to be strong." "You taught me I couldn't count on you," I corrected. "And now that I've succeeded despite you, not because of you, you want to cash in. That's not how this works." The meeting devolved from there. Voices were raised. My father mentioned lawyers, though for what purpose I couldn't fathom. My mother accused me of being jealous, bitter, and poisoned by my career success. I sat there, in my professional blazer in my company's conference room, being berated by the people who should have protected me. Finally, security appeared. Marcus, the head of building security who knew me from years of late nights, poked his head in. "Everything okay in here, Miss Thompson?" The question was directed at me, but his eyes were on my parents. "My parents were just leaving," I said quietly. The humiliation burned, but not as much as the realization that they'd rather embarrass me at my job than accept my decision. They left with final barbs about disappointment and consequences. My mother's parting shot was particularly cruel: "I hope your money keeps you warm when you're old and alone." I sat in that conference room for 10 minutes after they left, staring at the wall and trying to process what had just happened. A soft knock interrupted my spiral. My boss, Director of Operations Carla Santos, stepped in with 2 cups of coffee and a sympathetic expression. "Building security briefed me," she said simply, sliding a cup across the table. "Do you need some time off? Maybe work from home tomorrow?" I wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. "I'm so sorry. This is incredibly unprofessional. They've never. I didn't think they'd come here." Carla waved off my apologies. "Family drama happens to everyone. But Rachel, if this escalates or if you need resources, HR has employee assistance programs. Don't let them derail what you built here." That evening, I found a formal-looking envelope under my apartment door. My hand shook as I opened it, though part of me already knew what it would be. My parents had actually paid a lawyer to draft a family contribution agreement that outlined my moral and familial obligation to contribute to Ashley's wedding. The number had somehow grown to $55,000, with payment terms and everything. I laughed. Actually laughed, alone in my apartment, holding this ridiculous document. They'd paid actual money to a lawyer to try to guilt me into paying for a wedding. The irony was beautiful in its absurdity. The same parents who couldn't spare a dime for my education had hired legal counsel to extract money from me. I took a picture of the document and sent it to Kayla with the caption, "Peak Thompson family dysfunction." Her response was immediate, "Are they fucking serious? Also, that's not legally binding. Also, burn it and film it so I can watch." Instead of burning it, I filed it carefully. Something told me I might need evidence of this insanity later. Then I poured myself a glass of wine, ordered Thai food, and tried to figure out how my life had become a soap opera. My phone buzzed with another family member's disappointment, but I let it go to voicemail. Tomorrow would bring more guilt trips, more manipulation, more family members crawling out of the woodwork to tell me why I was wrong. But tonight, I was going to eat pad thai in my modest apartment, watch mindless TV, and remind myself that every dollar in my bank account was earned by my own hard work. They could send all the lawyers and guilt trips they wanted. My answer would remain the same, no. Friday morning brought the final ultimatum via a family group text that I didn't even know existed until Ashley added me at 5:47 a.m. The message was a masterpiece of manipulation, clearly drafted by my mother but signed by both parents. After much prayer and consideration, we've decided that if Rachel refuses to support her sister's happiness, she will no longer be welcome in this family. We never thought money would mean more to her than blood. We have 30 days before venue deposits are due. This is her last chance to make things right. The responses from family members rolled in like a toxic wave. Supportive emoji reactions, messages about how tough love was necessary, and testimonials about their own sacrifices for family. Cousin Bradley, who still lived in his mother's basement at 35, felt qualified to lecture me about family responsibility. Great Aunt Ruth, who hadn't sent so much as a Christmas card in a decade, emerged to share her disappointment in my selfishness. I screenshot everything before removing myself from the group. My hands were steady as I did it, though my chest felt tight. They'd actually threatened to disown me over money. The same people who taught me that family was everything were ready to throw me away because I wouldn't bankrupt myself for a party. During my lunch break, I met with my friend James Chen, who happened to be a lawyer specializing in family law. He reviewed the family contribution agreement with barely concealed amusement. "This is toilet paper," he said bluntly. "Legally speaking, no court would enforce this. It's emotional manipulation dressed up in legal language. The lawyer who drafted this should be embarrassed." "Can they actually disown me?" I asked, though the question felt surreal. "They can refuse to speak to you, exclude you from events, write you out of any wills. But Rachel, from what you've told me, what exactly would you be losing? They've been taking from you emotionally and trying to take from you financially. Maybe this is a gift." That evening, I sat down with my laptop and bank statements, running real numbers. $50,000 would set me back 5 years in my financial goals. It would mean no emergency fund, no down payment for a house, no cushion if I lost my job. It would mean continuing to live paycheck to paycheck despite making good money. Also, Ashley could have ice sculptures and a chocolate fountain. I also did some research on my parents' finances, using publicly available property records and social media. They'd refinanced the house twice in the past 10 years, both times coinciding with Ashley's major expenses. Their cars were leased, not owned. My father's retirement was probably underfunded, and my mother's part-time job at the church couldn't be contributing much. They were house-rich and cash-poor, leveraging their only asset to fund Ashley's lifestyle. The investigation led me to discover they were planning to take out a HELOC, home equity line of credit, for the wedding. They were literally mortgaging their retirement for this event. The financial irresponsibility was staggering, but it also explained their desperation. They needed my money because they didn't have any left to give. Saturday afternoon, Ashley called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered out of curiosity more than anything else. "You're ruining my life," she sobbed without preamble. "Blake says if we can't have the wedding I deserve, maybe we should reconsider everything. You're going to cost me my fiancé, Rachel. Is that what you want?" "If Blake's love depends on a $75,000 party, then he's not worth marrying," I replied, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "You don't understand what it's like," Ashley wailed. "Everything has always been so easy for you. You got to go to college, have a career, make your own choices. I've had to live in your shadow my whole life." The revisionist history was breathtaking. "Easy? Ashley, I worked 3 jobs in high school. I ate ramen for 4 years. I'm still paying off loans while you traveled Europe on mom and dad's dime. What exactly about my life has been easy?" "At least you got to chase your dreams," she shot back. "My dreams don't matter to anyone. Your dream is a party, Ashley. One day. My dream was an education and a career, which I'm still paying for. If you want a big wedding, get a job and save for it like adults do." The line went quiet except for her breathing. Then, in a voice I'd never heard from her before, cold and calculated, "Blake knows people. People who could make your life very difficult. Don't test us, Rachel." I actually laughed. "Is he threatening me? Your unemployed crypto bro fiancé is threatening me? Tell Blake if he contacts me in any threatening matter, I'll forward everything to the police and my company's legal team. I'm done playing these games." She hung up. 5 minutes later, Blake himself texted from his number. "You'll regret this. I have connections you can't imagine. Ashley deserves better than a bitter sister who can't let go of the past." I screenshot that too, adding it to my growing file labeled Family Dysfunction Evidence. The threads were probably empty, but I'd learned to document everything. You never knew when proof would come in handy. Sunday morning, I didn't go to church for the first time in months. I knew my parents would be there, playing the martyred parents with a wayward daughter. Instead, I met Kayla for brunch at our favorite spot, where mimosas were bottomless and judgment was non-existent. I found out more about the family finances, I told her over Eggs Benedict. My parents gave Ashley a trust fund from Great Aunt Margaret's inheritance. $200,000, Kayla. I got nothing because Rachel will be fine on her own. Kayla nearly choked on her mimosa. They had $200,000 and gave it all to Ashley? While you drowned in student loans? The trust was set up when we were teenagers. They made the decision then that Ashley would need it more. They literally planned for me to struggle while protecting her from any hardship. That's not just favoritism, that's calculated cruelty, Kayla said. They set you up to be their retirement plan while funding Ashley's extended childhood. Monday's therapy session was brutal. Dr. Martinez had been working with me for 2 years on family issues, but this latest development pushed us into new territory. They've shown you who they are, she said gently. The question now is whether you'll believe them. This isn't about a wedding, Rachel. This is about years of emotional neglect and financial manipulation coming to a head. But what if I'm wrong? I asked, the doubt creeping in despite everything. What if I'm being selfish? It's just money, and I do make more than any of them. Is it just money? Or is it about funding the continuation of a dynamic that's harmed you for years? They're not asking you to help with a medical emergency or basic needs. They're asking you to go into debt to fund a luxury they can't afford. That's not selfish, that's self-preservation. That night, I drafted a letter to my family. Not an emotional rant or a defensive screed, but a clear, factual accounting of our financial history. Every job I'd worked, every loan I'd taken, every sacrifice I'd made while Ashley received unlimited support. I listed the current balance of my student loans, my monthly expenses, and what $50,000 would actually mean for my future. I ended it with a simple statement: I love my family, but I will not sacrifice my financial security for a one-day event. If this means I lose my place in this family, then perhaps that place was always conditional on what I could provide rather than who I am. I sent it to my parents, Ashley and Blake, with copies to the family members who'd inserted themselves into the situation. The responses were predictable. My parents called it cold and heartless. Ashley accused me of attacking her. Blake sent another vaguely threatening message about consequences. But something interesting happened too. Aunt Linda called privately. I received your letter, she said carefully. There are things you don't know, Rachel. Things about how your parents have always viewed you versus Ashley. Can we meet for coffee? I agreed, curious despite my better judgment. Whatever she had to say, it couldn't be worse than what I already knew. Or so I thought. The week progressed with more of the same. Family members chose sides, my phone buzzed constantly with guilt trips and manipulations, and I threw myself into work to avoid thinking about it. But underneath the anger and hurt, a strange sense of freedom was growing. They'd given me an ultimatum: pay or be cast out. Once you remove the emotional manipulation, it wasn't a hard choice at all. My money, my future, my choices. If that made me a bad daughter and sister in their eyes, I'd have to learn to live with it. Because the alternative, drowning in debt to please people who'd never truly seen me, was no way to live at all. Tuesday afternoon, I met Aunt Linda at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She looked nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder as if my parents might materialize from thin air. She'd chosen a corner booth and waited until I had my latte before speaking. I've wanted to tell you this for years, she began, her hands wrapped around her own cup like she needed the warmth. But Diana made me promise. Said it would hurt you more to know. But watching this wedding situation unfold, seeing how they're treating you, you deserve the truth. My stomach twisted. What truth? Linda pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots of emails from years ago. The date stamp made my heart race. They were from when I was 17, right before college applications. The sender was my mother, the recipient was Linda. Robert and I have decided Rachel will need to make her own way through college, the first email read. She's strong enough to handle it, and frankly, Ashley is going to need more support in life. Rachel has always been independent. This will just make her stronger. I stared at the words, reading them 3 times before they sank in. They planned it? Keep reading, Linda said softly. The email chain was extensive. My parents had detailed their financial philosophy regarding my sister and me. They'd received Great-Aunt Margaret's inheritance of $300,000 when I was 15. Instead of splitting it between us or using it for both our educations, they'd immediately set up a trust for Ashley and invested the rest for their own retirement. Ashley doesn't have Rachel's drive, my father had written. We need to protect her future. Rachel will succeed regardless. It's actually better for her to struggle, it'll make her appreciate what she earns. They used words like natural selection and survival of the fittest when talking about you, Linda said, her voice thick with disgust. They literally decided you were strong enough to survive neglect while Ashley needed coddling. The emails got worse. They'd discussed watching me work 3 jobs with something like pride. See? We were right. She's figuring it out, my mother had written when I got my first scholarship. They'd congratulated themselves on their parenting strategy while I was sleeping 4 hours a night and living on dollar store food. There's more, Linda warned before showing me emails from just last year. This is about the wedding. The recent emails were even more calculating. They'd been planning to extract money from me for months, long before Blake even proposed. Rachel makes good money now, my mother had written. It's time for her to give back to the family. We'll frame it as supporting Ashley's happiness. She's always been jealous of her sister, maybe this will help her feel included. Jealous? I laughed bitterly. They think I'm jealous? They need to believe that, Linda said. Otherwise, they'd have to admit what they've done to you. Diana's my sister, but what they did was abuse, Rachel. Financial and emotional abuse. She showed me more evidence. Ashley's trust fund wasn't just the $200,000 I'd discovered. There had been additional deposits over the years, money from my parents' refinancing, bonds from other relatives that were supposed to be for both of us, even a small life insurance policy from my grandfather that I'd never known existed. Current balance? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. As of last month, about $150,000. She's blown through $50,000 in 4 years on travel, shopping, and failed business ventures. Remember her boutique that lasted 3 months? That was $20,000 alone. My coffee had gone cold, but I clutched the cup anyway. Why are you telling me this now? Linda's eyes filled with tears. Because they're doing it again. The wedding isn't even the real expense, Rachel. They've already put deposits down. The $50,000 they want from you? That's to replenish what they've taken from their retirement to cover Ashley's credit card debts. She and Blake have racked up almost $40,000 in the past year. On what? I asked, stunned. Living expenses. Trips. Blake's cryptocurrency losses. They've been living like trust fund babies without jobs. Your parents have been covering it, but they've hit their limit. That's why they need your money. I felt sick. So the wedding is already partially paid for. They're trying to use you to fix their other financial mistakes. The helic they're taking out? That's for Ashley's future expenses, not the wedding. They're planning to buy her a house as a wedding gift. The betrayal felt fresh all over again. Not only had they denied me help, they'd actively planned my struggle while protecting Ashley from any consequences. And now they wanted me to fund their continued enabling. I have one more thing, Linda said, pulling out a folder. These are receipts I've saved over the years. Things they bought Ashley while you were in college. The list was staggering. Spring break trips totaling $15,000. Shopping sprees at high-end stores. A semester abroad that cost $30,000, not for education, but for cultural enrichment. Spa retreats, concert tickets, designer goods. All while I was calculating whether I could afford both textbook and food. Why did you save all this? I asked. Because I knew this day would come, Linda said simply. Diana's my sister, but I've watched her create a monster in Ashley and a scapegoat in you. I couldn't interfere directly. She threatened to cut me off from the family if I helped you financially during college. But I could document it. She threatened you? Said if anyone helped you, it would undermine their parenting strategy. That you needed to learn independence. I should have helped anyway. I'm sorry, Rachel. I failed you too. We sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop buzzed around us, normal people living normal lives while my entire understanding of my family crumbled. What do I do with this? I asked finally. Whatever gives you peace, Linda said. But Rachel, you owe them nothing. Less than nothing. They stole your childhood support and gave it to Ashley. Every struggle you faced was by their design. Don't let them steal your adulthood too. I left the meeting with the folder of evidence and a head full of static. Everything made sense now, the calculated neglect, the praise for my independence that was really abandonment, the expectation that I'd eventually pay them back for the privilege of raising myself. That evening, I did more digging. Social media was a goldmine of evidence. Ashley's Instagram showed the truth behind her lifestyle. Trips to Cabo, Miami, New York. Designer bags and shoes. Expensive dinners and bottle service at clubs. All while supposedly being unemployed and finding herself. Blake's social media was equally revealing. His entrepreneur status consisted mainly of failed schemes and cryptocurrency gambling. His LinkedIn showed a spotty work history with gaps explained by pursuing independent ventures. He'd been living off Ashley's trust fund, and by extension, my inheritance. I found photos from family gatherings I hadn't attended because I couldn't afford the travel. Ashley wearing jewelry that cost more than my car. My parents beaming beside her, proud of their baby girl while I worked overtime to make rent. The unfairness of it all threatened to overwhelm me. But then I found something else. Comments on older photos from relatives asking about me. Where's Rachel? We miss Rachel at these gatherings. Tell Rachel we're proud of her graduation. My parents' responses were telling. Rachel's too busy with work. You know Rachel, always independent. They'd painted me as choosing career over family, when really I couldn't afford to visit. My phone rang. Ashley. Aunt Linda had no right, she started without preamble. So she knew about our meeting. She had every right. Someone needed to tell me the truth. That money was mine, Ashley insisted. Mom and Dad said I needed it more. You're smart, Rachel. You didn't need help. I needed parents, Ashley. I needed support. I needed to not work myself sick to get an education. But you needed spa days and European vacations, so I guess that trumps everything. You're so bitter, she spat. This is why they didn't help you. They knew you'd turn out angry and resentful. I'm angry because I just found out my struggle was orchestrated. They had $300,000, Ashley. I lived on ramen while you spent $50,000 on failed businesses. And now you want me to pay for your wedding? It's not my fault they loved me more, Ashley said, and for once, her cruelty was honest instead of wrapped in manipulation. You're right, I said calmly. It's not your fault. It's theirs. But it is your fault that you're 22, unemployed, and still expecting everyone else to fund your life. The bank of Rachel is closed, Ashley. Forever. She screamed something about ruining her life before I hung up. My phone immediately lit up with texts from my parents, but I didn't read them. I had enough truth for one day. Instead, I called Kayla and told her everything. She came over with wine and tissues, ready for whatever I needed. We sat on my couch, the folder of evidence spread on the coffee table, and she held my hand while I cried for the childhood I'd never really had. What's your next move? She asked when the tears finally stopped. I'm going to show them exactly who they created, I said. The independent woman who doesn't need them. They want to disown me? I'll make it easy for them. But first, they're going to hear some truths of their own. I spent the rest of the night organizing the evidence, preparing for what I knew would be the final confrontation. They'd stolen my past, but they wouldn't touch my future. Not anymore. I scheduled the family meeting for Saturday at 2 p.m. at a neutral location, a private dining room at a local restaurant. I sent formal invitations to my parents, Ashley and Blake, making it clear this was their one opportunity to hear me out before I made my final decision. I also invited Aunt Linda as my witness and support. They arrived together, a united front against the family traitor. My mother wore her church outfit, probably hoping to guilt me with her righteousness. My father had his stern face on, the one that used to terrify me as a child. Ashley clung to Blake's arm, playing the victim before anyone even spoke. They sat across from me like a tribunal, ready to pass judgment. I'd prepared extensively. The folder Linda had given me was organized and copied. My laptop contained the social media evidence. I'd even created a PowerPoint, because if they wanted to treat this like a business transaction, I'd give them a full presentation. Thank you for coming, I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I want to start by saying this isn't about anger or revenge. This is about truth and setting boundaries based on that truth. Boundaries? My mother scoffed. Family doesn't have boundaries, Rachel. Healthy families do, I replied, clicking to my first slide. Let's start with some facts. The first slide showed the timeline of financial decisions. The inheritance they received. The trust fund establishment. The documentation of expenses for both daughters over the years. I'd created graphs showing the disparity, approximately $350,000 spent on Ashley versus zero on me. These numbers are misleading, my father interrupted. We fed you, housed you. Until I was 18, I cut in. Which is the legal minimum requirement for parents. I'm not counting basic necessities. I'm counting additional support. Educational expenses, enrichment activities, financial gifts. Ashley received all of these. I received none. You were stronger, my mother said, as if that explained everything. I was a child, I corrected. A child who worked 3 jobs while her sister got professional spray tans. A child who developed anxiety disorders from financial stress while her sister developed shopping addictions from unlimited credit cards. I clicked to the next slides, the emails Linda had shared. I watched my parents' faces change as they realized their own words were on display. My mother's confident posture crumbled. My father's stern expression shifted to something like panic. How did you? My mother started. Get these? Does it matter? What matters is you planned my struggle. You had the means to help both your daughters, and you chose to help only one. You chose to watch me suffer and called it building character. Ashley found her voice. Those emails don't mean anything. They made the best decisions they could. You turned out fine. Did I? I asked, clicking to the next slide showing my medical records. Anxiety disorder, diagnosed at 19. Stress-induced insomnia, ongoing. Therapy for family trauma, 2 years and counting. Does this look fine to you? You're being dramatic, Blake interjected. Lots of people have student loans. You're not special. I turned to him with a smile that felt like ice. You're right, Blake. I'm not special. At least not to my family. But I am successful, which is why you're all here trying to extract money from me for your lifestyle. It's not about lifestyle, Ashley protested. It's about my wedding. My special day. Let's talk about that, I said, moving to the financial slides. The wedding budget you presented was $75,000. But I did some research. The actual costs you've incurred are closer to $40,000. Where's the other $35,000 going? The silence was telling. My parents exchanged glances. Ashley suddenly found her manicure fascinating. It's for their future, my mother finally admitted. Starting their life together. You mean paying off their credit card debt and buying them a house, I said flatly. While I continue to pay $800 a month in student loans. You want me to subsidize their irresponsibility while still paying for my own education. You make 6 figures. Ashley shouted. Why are you being so selfish? Let's examine that, I said, pulling up my budget. After taxes, my take-home is about $70,000. Minus student loans, that's $60,000. Rent takes another $18,000. Basic expenses, savings for emergencies, retirement contributions, I have about $15,000 in discretionary income annually. You're asking for 3 years of my financial cushion for one day. Family helps family, my father repeated his mantra. Where was that help when I needed it? I asked. Where was family when I was choosing between textbooks and food? Where was family when I graduated magna cum laude and no one could afford to attend because Ashley needed a spa weekend? We did what we thought was best, my mother said weakly. No, you did what was easiest, I corrected. It was easier to neglect the responsible child. Easier to buy Ashley's love than earn mine. Easier to create a codependent relationship with one daughter while abandoning the other. I clicked to the final section, the recent evidence of financial manipulation. You've been planning to ask me for money since I got promoted last year. This isn't about the wedding. It's about me finally having something you could take. You see me as a resource to be exploited, not a daughter to be loved. That's not true, my mother cried, real tears now. We love you, Rachel. You love what I can provide, I said. You loved my independence when it meant you didn't have to parent me. You love my success when you can brag about it at church. You love my income when you can access it. But do you love me? The person who struggled and succeeded despite you? You're twisting everything, Ashley said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Then explain why you threatened me. Why Blake threatened my career. Why you tried to use a lawyer to intimidate me. Are those the actions of a loving family? Blake started to speak, but I held up my hand. I have screenshots of every threat you sent. My company's legal team has copies. So does my lawyer. Think very carefully before you say anything else. His mouth snapped shut. Ashley looked at him with something like fear. Maybe she was finally realizing the kind of man she was marrying. Where do we go from here? My father asked quietly. The fight had gone out of him. That depends on you, I said, closing my laptop. I'm willing to maintain a relationship with you, but only under certain conditions. First, you acknowledge the disparity in how you treated Ashley and me. Second, you stop asking me for money, ever. Third, you get family counseling to address these toxic dynamics. Fourth, you accept that I will never fund Ashley's lifestyle choices. And if we refuse? My mother asked. Then you've made your choice. You prioritized money over your daughter. I'll respect that choice by removing myself from your lives. No drama, no revenge. Just absence. You're asking us to choose, Ashley said accusingly. No, I'm asking you to stop asking me to choose between my future and your fantasy. I'm setting boundaries. You can respect them and keep me in your life, or you can continue trying to exploit me and lose me forever. It's that simple. Aunt Linda, who had been silent throughout, finally spoke. Diana, Robert, you need to listen to her. You've lost one daughter to entitlement and greed. Don't lose the other to pride. My mother turned on her sister. This is your fault. Filling her head with lies. They're not lies, Mom, I said quietly. They're your own words. Your own emails. Your own choices. Own them. The meeting deteriorated from there. Ashley accused me of trying to ruin her life. My parents cycled between guilt trips and anger. Blake made more veiled threats that I continued to document. But I'd said what I needed to say. The truth was on the table. As I stood to leave, my father made one last attempt. Rachel, please. We're family. Yes, we are, I agreed. Which is why this hurts so much. I loved you unconditionally. I worked hard to make you proud. I succeeded despite every obstacle. And your response was to try to take what little I built. That's not family. That's exploitation. I left them there, Aunt Linda following me out. In the parking lot, she hugged me tightly. You did good, kid, she said. I'm proud of you. What if I'm wrong? I asked, the doubt creeping in. What if I'm destroying my family? You're not destroying anything, she said firmly. You're refusing to enable destruction. There's a difference. As I drove home, my phone exploded with messages. I didn't read them. Whatever they had to say could wait. I'd laid out my truth and my terms. The ball was in their court now. But deep down, I already knew their choice. They'd choose the easy path, the one where they were victims and I was the villain. They'd choose Ashley's dependence over my independence. They'd choose their narrative over reality. And for the first time in my life, I was okay with that. Because I was choosing too, choosing myself, choosing my future, choosing freedom from their manufactured chaos. It had taken 28 years, but I was finally free. The social media assassination began Sunday morning. I woke up to 17 notifications on Facebook, 43 Instagram tags, and a Twitter thread that made me grateful my account was locked. Ashley had posted a carefully edited video compilation titled The Sister Who Abandoned Family. The video was a masterwork of manipulation. She'd secretly recorded parts of our family meeting, editing out all context and keeping only my most severe statements. There I was saying I will never fund Ashley's lifestyle choices, but not the part about threats and financial abuse that preceded it. There I was walking out, but not the 3 hours of evidence I'd presented first. The caption was pure victimhood. My own sister, who makes 6 figures, refuses to help with my modest wedding while I struggle to make ends meet. She called me entitled for wanting one special day. Money changes people. I've lost my sister to greed. The comments were predictable. Family friends who'd known us since childhood expressed shock at my selfishness. Church members promised to pray for my soul. Distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my character. But the real shock came from unexpected sources. Former classmates who knew my college struggle commented about my forgetting where I came from. Coworkers who were Facebook friends started treating me differently at the office, clearly having seen the drama. The narrative Ashley spun was spreading beyond family into my professional life. Monday morning, my boss Carla called me into her office. My heart sank. "I want to be clear that your personal life is your business," she began carefully. "But when it affects the workplace, I need to address it. Several employees have mentioned seeing some concerning social media content about you." I felt my face burn. My sister posted edited videos of a family dispute. It's not an accurate representation of the situation. "I'm not interested in the details," Carla said kindly. "What I am interested in is whether this will continue to impact your work environment. We've built a strong team here, and drama can be toxic to that culture." "I understand. I'm handling it. I've already restricted my social media and am working with a lawyer regarding the defamatory content." She nodded. "Good. Rachel, you're a valuable member of this team. Don't let family drama derail what you've built here. If you need resources, HR is available." I left her office humiliated but grateful she hadn't been harsher. The rest of the day, I noticed whispers stopping when I walked by, conversations shifting when I entered rooms. The office gossip mill was in full swing. Tuesday night, things escalated. I was settling in for the evening when I heard shouting outside my apartment. Looking through the peephole, I saw Ashley in the hallway, clearly intoxicated, pounding on my door. "I know you're in there, you selfish bitch," she screamed. "You ruined everything. Blake's family pulled their contribution because of your scene. The venue wants full payment now. You destroyed my life." I called building security while she continued her tirade. Other residents opened their doors, witnessing my sister's meltdown. She went into detail about my cruelty, my jealousy, and how I'd always hated her for being prettier and more loved. When security arrived, she turned on them. "This is family business. She's my sister. I have a right to talk to her." "Ma'am, you need to leave, or we'll call the police," the security guard said firmly. "Call them." Ashley shrieked. "Maybe they'll make her talk to me." They did call the police. I watched through my peephole as 2 officers escorted my drunk, crying sister out of the building. One knocked on my door afterward to check if I wanted to file a formal complaint. I declined but asked for a report of the incident for my records. Within an hour, Blake was texting from multiple numbers I hadn't blocked yet. "You had Ashley arrested. You've crossed a line. We're filing a restraining order against you for harassment. See how you like legal troubles." I forwarded everything to James, my lawyer friend, who responded with amused disbelief. "They really don't understand how restraining orders work, do they? Save everything. Their threats are building your case, not theirs." The next morning, I installed a security camera outside my apartment door. My neighbors were understanding. Mrs. Chen from across the hall even offered to be a witness if I needed one. "That girl was out of control," she said. "Screaming about money and weddings. You were smart not to open the door." But the damage to my reputation was spreading. LinkedIn notifications showed people viewing my profile at unusual rates. A recruiter I'd been talking to about potential opportunities suddenly ghosted me. My carefully built professional image was cracking under the weight of family drama. Thursday brought a new low. Someone, I suspected Blake, had created a fake GoFundMe titled "Help Ashley Have Her Dream Wedding After Family Betrayal." The description painted me as a wealthy, heartless sister who'd abandoned family in their time of need. They'd used photos from my company website alongside Ashley's tearful selfies. The fundraiser included lies about my salary, claims that I'd stolen opportunities from Ashley, and accusations that I'd turned the family against her. The goal was set at $60,000, and somehow, they'd already raised $3,000 from sympathetic strangers. I spent my lunch break on the phone with GoFundMe's fraud department. Proving the fundraiser was fraudulent required extensive documentation, which I provided. They said they'd investigate but couldn't give me a timeline. Meanwhile, the money kept rolling in. "They're profiting off lying about me," I told Kayla that evening. We were at her place because I couldn't stand being in my apartment, waiting for another ambush. "It's fraud," she agreed. "But more than that, it's desperate. They're showing everyone exactly who they are, even if people can't see it yet." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of a Facebook post from someone I didn't recognize, shared in what appeared to be a wedding planning group. "Ladies, check out this drama. Rich sister won't help with wedding costs. Link to the GoFundMe in comments. Let's help this poor bride." The post had hundreds of reactions and dozens of comments, most supporting Ashley, some calling me names I won't repeat. My private family drama had become internet entertainment for strangers. Friday at work was unbearable. I overheard two coworkers discussing the situation in the break room. I saw the video. She seemed so cold. I can't imagine treating my sister that way. They stopped talking when they saw me, at least having the decency to look embarrassed. I threw myself into work, staying late to avoid going home. Around 8 p.m., security called up to my office. "Ms. Thompson? There's a process server here for you." My hand shook as I signed for the envelope. Inside was exactly what Blake had threatened, a restraining order petition. They'd accused me of harassment, stalking, and causing emotional distress. The lies were blatant and easily disproven, but I'd still have to appear in court to defend myself. The universe wasn't done with me yet. When I finally made it home after 10, I found my apartment door covered in printed screenshots from the GoFundMe and social media posts. Someone, Ashley, Blake, or one of their supporters, had plastered my door with their propaganda. My neighbors had to walk past this display to get to their homes. I carefully removed each paper, saving them as evidence. Mrs. Chen poked her head out. "I have video of who did it," she said quietly. "That blonde man, around dinner time." My grandson set up camera after the screaming girl incident. I could have kissed her. "Thank you. Would you be willing to share that with my lawyer?" "Of course. You're a good neighbor. Quiet, respectful. These people." She shook her head. "No class." That weekend, I stayed with Kayla. My apartment no longer felt safe, and I needed space to think. We spent Saturday organizing evidence for both my lawyer and the GoFundMe fraud team. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. "You know what the worst part is?" I said, staring at my laptop screen full of lies about me. "They've made me the villain in their story so completely that even if the truth comes out, people will remember the drama, not the facts." "Then we make sure the facts are louder," Kayla said firmly. "You've been playing defense. Maybe it's time to go on offense." She was right. I'd been so focused on protecting myself that I'd let them control the narrative. But I had truth on my side, and more importantly, I had evidence. Mountains of it. Sunday night, I made a decision. If they wanted to make this public, I'd give the public the full story. I started drafting my own social media post, including the emails, the financial documents, the threats, the security footage. Everything. "The truth about my family betrayal," I typed as the title. It was time to fight fire with facts. I never got to post my tell-all. 3 weeks before the wedding, karma arrived in spectacular fashion. It started with a call from Aunt Linda on a Tuesday morning. "Have you seen Facebook?" she asked breathlessly. I hadn't. I'd deactivated most of my social media after the harassment escalated. What now? The venue canceled Ashley's wedding. Publicly. On their own Facebook page. I immediately logged into my dormant account. There it was. Rosewood Estates' official page with a carefully worded statement about maintaining standards of honesty and integrity in all client relationships and their decision to terminate contracts when fraudulent representations are made. They didn't name Ashley directly, but the comments made it clear everyone knew. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the panicked breathing before she even spoke. "What did you do?" Ashley shrieked. "You contacted the venue, didn't you? You vindictive bitch." "I haven't spoken to anyone at Rosewood," I said truthfully. "Whatever happened is on you. They said we lied on the application. That we misrepresented our financial situation. Blake's family is threatening to sue us for the deposits they lost." The story unraveled quickly through family gossip and social media. Ashley and Blake had claimed his family was covering most costs to secure the premium date. They'd provided fake bank statements that Blake created, showing inflated balances. The venue discovered the fraud when Blake's parents called to clarify why they were being billed for services they hadn't agreed to. But that was just the beginning. Like dominoes, other vendors started calling my parents. The florist hadn't received the deposit Ashley claimed was paid. The photographer had been given a bad check. The caterer had been promised payment from my contribution. The $50,000 I'd never agreed to give. My mother called me crying. "Everything's falling apart. We need your help, Rachel." "Not for Ashley, for us. We could lose the house." "How could you lose the house?" I asked, though I suspected the answer. "We took out the home equity loan," she sobbed. "Gave Ashley $30,000 for deposits and expenses. But she and Blake, they didn't pay the vendors. We don't know where the money went." I sat in my office, phone pressed to my ear, feeling nothing. They'd mortgaged their retirement for a wedding that was built on lies, and the money had vanished. "Where's the $30,000, Mom?" "Blake invested it. Said he could double it before the wedding. Something about cryptocurrency and a sure thing." "It's gone, Rachel." "All of it." Of course it was. Blake, the unemployed crypto expert, had gambling away wedding funds while telling vendors I'd be covering the costs. The audacity was almost impressive. "I can't help you," I said quietly. "You made your choice." "We'll lose everything," she wailed. "Is that what you want?" What I wanted was parents who loved me equally. What I wanted was support during college. What I wanted was to not be harassed and threatened for protecting my own financial future. What you're experiencing now. It's called consequences. She hung up on me. 20 minutes later, my father sent a text, "Your mother is in the hospital. Stress-related chest pains. I hope you're happy." I wasn't happy. But I also wasn't responsible. I forwarded the text to my therapist, who reminded me in an emergency session that their choices led to their consequences, not mine. The family drama exploded over the next week. Ashley and Blake turned on each other publicly. She posted screenshots of his trading account showing massive losses. He responded with her shopping receipts and evidence of her lying about wedding expenses. Their mutual destruction was thorough and vicious. The GoFundMe was shut down after investigation revealed the fraudulent claims, but not before they'd collected $8,000. Donors demanded refunds. Some threatened legal action. Ashley's reputation in multiple wedding planning groups was destroyed as the truth spread. But the real shock came when cousin Melissa forwarded me a police report. Blake had been arrested for fraud. Not related to the wedding, but an ongoing scheme involving fake investment opportunities. Ashley was named as a potential accomplice. The wedding money wasn't his first gambling with other people's funds. My parents, faced with potentially losing their house and their daughter facing criminal charges, did what they'd always done, blamed me. A family email went out detailing how my refusal to help family had driven Ashley to desperation. How my greed had forced them into bad decisions. How my jealousy had destroyed a young couple's future. Most relatives saw through it by now. The evidence was too overwhelming. But some, especially the older generation, clung to the idea that family should stick together no matter what. Grandmother Helen called to tell me I was no longer welcome at Christmas. "You may be right, but you didn't have to be cruel about it," she said before hanging up. I consulted with James about the restraining order hearing, which was now complicated by Blake's arrest. "They'll probably drop it," he predicted. "Hard to claim you're the harasser when he's facing fraud charges." He was right. The hearing was cancelled. Blake had bigger legal problems, and Ashley was too busy trying to distance herself from his crimes to pursue vendetta lawsuits against me. The wedding date came and went. Instead of a lavish celebration at Rosewood Estate, Ashley spent it meeting with lawyers. Blake was out on bail but prohibited from contacting her as investigations continued. Their fairy tale romance had revealed itself as a partnership in deception. My parents faced foreclosure. The hellish payments on top of their regular mortgage were unsustainable without the income they'd imagined I'd provide. They'd bet their home on Ashley's wedding and lost everything. A week after the non-wedding, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Ashley, calling from a friend's phone. "I need help," she said quietly. All the fight had gone out of her voice. "I could go to jail, Rachel. The lawyers say I might have known about Blake's schemes. I signed things I didn't read. I spent money I didn't know was stolen. What do you want me to say, Ashley? I want you to help me. You're the smart one. The successful one. You always know what to do." "I told you what to do. Get a job. Live within your means. Stop expecting others to fund your lifestyle. You chose not to listen." "I didn't know he was a criminal," she whispered. "But you knew he was unemployed. You knew he was gambling with wedding money. You knew you were lying to vendors. You made choices, Ashley. Now you have to live with them. Mom and Dad might lose the house because of me," she said, crying now. "No, they might lose the house because of their choices. They chose to enable you. They chose to mortgage their future for your party. They chose to attack me when I wouldn't participate in the delusion. Everyone in this situation had choices. You all chose poorly. You really won't help any of us?" "I helped myself, Ashley. Just like Mom and Dad taught me to. Remember? I'm the independent one. The strong one. I don't need anybody." "Well, congratulations. You were right. I don't need any of you." She was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "For everything. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry." "I hope you mean that," I said. "And I hope you use this as a wake-up call." "But Ashley? Being sorry doesn't erase the damage. It doesn't undo the threats, the harassment, the attempted financial abuse. It doesn't rebuild the relationships you burned. Sorry is a starting point, not a solution." I hung up. It was the last time we spoke. The fallout continued for months. Blake eventually pled guilty to lesser charges and received probation and restitution requirements. Ashley avoided jail but was named in several civil suits from defrauded investors. My parents managed to sell the house before foreclosure but had to move into a small apartment. Family gatherings split into factions, those who supported me and those who still believed family meant enabling destruction. I wasn't invited to most events anymore, which felt more like freedom than punishment. Through it all, I kept working, kept paying my loans, kept building my life. The drama had cost me some professional opportunities and personal relationships, but it had also shown me who truly supported me. My chosen family of friends like Kayla proved more loyal than blood ever had. Sometimes I wondered if I could have handled it differently. If there was a path that wouldn't have led to such complete destruction. But then I remembered the emails, the planned neglect, the calculated favoritism. They'd created this dynamic decades ago. I'd just refused to play my assigned role anymore. The wedding that never was became family legend, told differently depending on the teller. In some versions, I was the villain who destroyed young love. In others, I was the hero who refused to enable abuse. The truth, as always, was more complicated. But I knew one thing for certain. Saying no to that $50,000 demand was the best money I never spent. 6 months after the wedding disaster, I sat in my new condo's kitchen, sunlight streaming through windows I actually owned. The loan pre-approval had been nerve-wracking. I'd worried the family drama might have damaged my credit or reputation enough to interfere. But my financial discipline through the chaos had actually strengthened my position. While my family imploded, I'd kept paying down debt and building savings. The condo wasn't large or luxurious, but it was mine. No more apartments with thin walls where family members could scream in hallways. No more temporary spaces that never quite felt safe. This was home, bought with money I'd earned despite every obstacle. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that I almost deleted until I saw the preview. "This is your mother. We need to talk." I'd maintained no contact for 6 months. The restraining order situation had been dropped, but I'd kept my own boundaries firmly in place. Seeing her number. A new one, probably from a prepaid phone, brought back the familiar anxiety. But I was stronger now. Therapy twice a week had become once a month. The anger had faded into something more like sad acceptance. I called Dr. Martinez before responding. "Remember, you control this interaction," she reminded me. "You can choose to engage or not. If you do engage, set clear boundaries about what you will and won't discuss." I waited a day before responding. "I'll listen." Public place. 30 minutes maximum. "No Ashley, no money talk." She agreed immediately. We met at a coffee shop downtown, the same one where Aunt Linda had shown me the truth. My mother looked older, smaller somehow. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by department store basics. The entitled attitude had been tempered by reality. "Thank you for coming," she started, hands wrapped around her coffee cup. "I didn't think you would." "What do you want, Mom?" She flinched at my directness. "To apologize. Really apologize, not just say words. I destroyed our family. I see that now." "What do you see, exactly?" She pulled out a worn notebook. "I've been in therapy too. Court-ordered at first, part of the bankruptcy proceedings, but I've continued on my own. I wrote down everything I did wrong. Do you want to hear it?" I nodded, curious despite myself. "I failed you as a mother. I convinced myself that neglect was building character. I told myself you were strong enough to handle anything, so I gave you nothing. I watched you struggle and called it success. I stole your inheritance and gave it to Ashley. I created a golden child and a scapegoat, and I'm the one who assigned those roles." Her voice broke, but she continued. "When you succeeded despite us, instead of being proud, I felt entitled to your success. Like we'd earned it by making you strong. The wedding money, it was never about the wedding. It was about maintaining the illusion that our parenting choices were right. If you paid, it proved you'd turned out fine, that we hadn't damaged you." "But you did damage me," I said quietly. "I know. I see it now. Every therapy session, every anxiety attack, every relationship you struggle with because you learned early that love was conditional. I did that. Your father and I did that." We sat in silence for a moment. I'd imagined this conversation so many times, but the reality felt different. Less satisfying than I'd expected. Her acknowledgement didn't erase the past. "How's Ashley?" I asked, surprising myself. "In therapy too. Convicted of fraud conspiracy, probation for 3 years. She's living with us, working at Target. It's humbling for her. She asks about you sometimes. And Dad? Angry. He still thinks you should have helped, but he's also angry at me, at Ashley, at himself. We're probably getting divorced. Too much blame, not enough forgiveness left. The family I'd grown up in was truly gone. Not just fractured but fundamentally dissolved. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. Don't be. We built our house on lies and favoritism. It was always going to fall. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I tensed, ready to refuse whatever monetary request was coming. It's not money, she said quickly, seeing my expression. It's a letter. From Ashley. She wanted me to give it to you if you'd see me. You don't have to read it. You don't have to do anything. But she wanted you to have it. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Is that all? No. She took a deep breath. I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. Not for your success or your money. For your strength in walking away. For refusing to enable us. For breaking the cycle. You did what I never could, you chose yourself. I had to, I said. No one else was going to choose me. I know. And that's my biggest regret. That my daughter had to learn to mother herself because I was too busy mothering a grown woman who refused to grow up. We talked for a few more minutes about safer topics. The weather. My new job, a promotion to VP that came after the drama died down. Her part-time work as a receptionist. Normal mother-daughter conversation that felt foreign after years of manipulation. When our 30 minutes were up, I stood to leave. Thank you for the apology. I needed to hear it. Could we do this again sometime? She asked hopefully. Maybe. I need time. And there would be conditions. No asking for money, ever. No guilt trips about family. No updates about Ashley unless I ask. No trying to reconcile everyone. Just, if we rebuild anything, it has to be new. The old dynamic is dead. I understand. Whatever you need. I left feeling lighter but cautious. One conversation didn't rebuild trust. Words didn't erase years of neglect and months of harassment. But it was something. That evening, I finally opened Ashley's letter. It was shorter than I expected. Rachel. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. I was the golden child who turned into a monster. You worked for everything while I expected it all to be handed to me. When it wasn't, I blamed you instead of myself. I see you now. The real you, not the villain I created in my head. You're the sister who survived despite everything, who refused to drown with the rest of us. I hated you for that strength, but now I understand it's what I need to learn. I'm working now. Minimum wage, but it's mine. I'm saving money for the first time. It's hard, but I think about you doing it at 15 and feel ashamed I'm only starting at 23. I don't expect a response. I don't deserve one. But I wanted you to know that you were right about everything. And someday, I hope to be half as strong as you've always been. Ashley. I cried reading it. Not the pretty tears of movies but ugly, soul-deep sobs for the relationship we could have had if our parents hadn't poisoned it from the start. For the sister I'd lost to favoritism and the one slowly emerging from its wreckage. The next day, I did something I'd been considering for months. I created the Rachel Thompson Scholarship Fund at my old university. $5,000 annually for a student who demonstrated financial need and academic merit despite family challenges. The essay prompt asked about overcoming obstacles without family support. It wasn't much, but it was something. A way to transform my pain into someone else's opportunity. The first recipient sent me a thank you letter that made me cry again, good tears this time. Life moved forward. I finished paying off my student loans 2 years early through aggressive payments. The relief of that final payment was indescribable. I kept the confirmation email printed and framed. My diploma had proved I could survive despite them, but that zero balance proved I could thrive. My chosen family grew stronger. Kayla stood beside me as maid of honor when I married Tom, a software engineer who understood family trauma because he'd survived his own. Our wedding cost $12,000, which we paid ourselves, and it was perfect in its simplicity. I ran into Ashley once, 2 years after the coffee shop meeting with our mother. She was coming out of the community college library, arms full of textbooks. We stood there awkwardly before she smiled, a real smile, not the manipulative one I remembered. "Accounting degree," she said, gesturing to the books. "Who would have thought?" "I'm proud of you," I said, meaning it. "I'm working 2 jobs to pay for it. No loans. I want to do it right this time." We didn't hug or make plans to meet. The damage was too deep for sisterly lunches. But we nodded at each other with something like understanding before going our separate ways. My parents divorced, as predicted. Dad moved to Florida to live with his brother. Mom stayed local, working and attending therapy. We met for coffee quarterly, slowly building something new. Not a mother-daughter relationship exactly, but a connection between 2 adults who shared history. The extended family remained split. Some relatives reached out to apologize for their part in the harassment. Others maintained I'd destroyed the family. I made peace with being the villain in their story. Every hero is someone's villain, and I'd rather be hated for setting boundaries than loved for enabling dysfunction. 5 years after the wedding that never was, I stood on my condo's balcony, the larger one I'd upgraded to after my latest promotion. The city sparkled below, full of people living their own complex stories. My phone sat silent on the table. No crisis calls, no guilt trips, no threats. Just peaceful silence. Tom joined me, handing me a cup of tea. "Your mom texted about Christmas dinner." "Yeah, I saw. I think we'll go for a couple hours." "You sure?" I nodded. "I'm sure." The boundaries were firm now, tested and proven. I could share space with family without losing myself. My phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification, the latest scholarship recipient thanking me for the opportunity. I smiled, thinking about the girl I'd been, working 3 jobs and eating ramen, certain no one cared about her struggle. I'd been wrong. Someone had cared, future me, looking back with compassion and forward with purpose. The family I'd been born into had failed me, but the life I'd built was mine. Every brick laid with my own hands, every success earned through my own effort. The greatest revenge isn't living well, it's living free. Free from obligation, manipulation, and the heavy weight of conditional love. Free to choose who deserves access to your life and who doesn't. Free to transform pain into purpose and trauma into triumph. As the sun set over my city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, I raised my tea in a silent toast. To the girl who survived on spite and determination. To the woman who chose herself when no one else would. To the future, unencumbered by the past. The family I'd lost had never really been mine. But the life I'd gained? That was everything. And it was enough. More than enough. It was perfect. If you've made it this far, thank you for witnessing my journey. Maybe you see yourself in my story, the overlooked sibling, the family ATM, the one who succeeded despite, not because. Your struggles are valid. Your boundaries are necessary. Your success is yours alone. To those facing similar family dynamics, document everything. Trust your instincts. Set boundaries and defend them fiercely. You can't save people who won't save themselves, and enabling isn't love, it's slow mutual destruction. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have paid for the wedding to keep the peace? Where do you draw the line between family obligation and self-preservation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about complex family dynamics. Share this with someone who needs to hear that choosing yourself isn't selfish, sometimes it's survival. Remember, you deserve love that doesn't come with a price tag, support that doesn't require suffering, and a future that you build with your own hands. Thank you for listening to my story. May your boundaries be firm, your chosen family be loyal, and your success be entirely your own. Until next time, this is Rachel Thompson, reminding you that the best investment you can make is in yourself.